Hey all, my name is Ash Nohe. I'm here to talk about per-app language preferences. I'm a developer relations engineer. I work on the per-app language preferences team. My goal is to talk about what this feature is, how to implement it, maybe if you should implement it. Hopefully you're here to get some of those details. Before we talk about what this feature is, let's talk about why it's important. So for that, we're going to talk through a few user journeys. So first user journey, imagine you live and work in Zurich for an international company. Your work apps are in English. Your local service apps, like your banking app, is in German. It works better in German. And your communication apps, for which you use to communicate with your friends and family back home, are in your native language, Portuguese. As another user journey, imagine you speak Bengali and Hindi fluently. On your phone, you read the news in Hindi, and you send messages in Bengali. Your phone settings are in English because it's easier to get help with your phone that way. In this sense, English is a bridge language. So these users need their app languages to be different from the system language, and this is what this feature is. As a developer, you can provide this functionality to your users in two ways. First, in device settings, which we'll talk about. Second, in app, we'll also talk about that. You might choose to do one of these things or both of these things, and if you do both of these things, the nice thing is the two things sync. So no matter where your users are setting your application language, whether that be in the settings app or in your app itself, your app will display in the correct language. So let's dive into the in-device settings portion first. All right, so on the right-hand side here, you see a GIF of ShareChat navigating back and forth between the settings app and their app. In the settings app, they have their own app languages page, which provides a list of supported languages. They select a language, and when they navigate back to their ShareChat app, their UI updates to be in the language that they selected in the settings app. So the benefit of this is that it's a centralized location for users to set any of their application languages, provided that the application has opted into the feature. And to opt into the feature, you'll want to declare your app's supported languages. So let's talk about how to declare your app's supported languages. Fortunately, this is pretty easy. In your Android manifest, you'll provide a locale config tag. That will point to an XML. The XML is a list of your app's supported languages, including your app's default locale. And that's it. So as an app developer, this is the lowest hanging fruit. We recommend to do this first, unless you already have an in-app language picker. So let's talk about the next one. What if you want to create an in-app language picker? Okay, so on the right-hand side here, you see a sample application. The user is presented with an in-app language picker. They can toggle between English, French, Hindi, Japanese, and as they select their language, their UI text updates to be in that language. So the benefit of this is this in-app language picker is in-app. Users don't have to leave your application to be able to set your application language. And it doesn't require an app restart. It is handled like a configuration change, so it's an activity restart. Developers will also appreciate that this API is backwards compatible. So let's dive into how to implement this language picker. Okay, so let's say you have the UI of the language picker built out already. When your user goes to select the language, you are going to want to call appcompat delegate set application locales. You'll provide a locale list of one element, and that one element is the locale that the user selected. And that's it. You might also want to consider how you store locale preferences. So what do I mean by this is, let's say your user has set your app language to be in Hindi, and then they entirely close down the app and they start it back up. Their expectation is for your app to still be in Hindi, which means that user preference is stored somewhere. So for Android T and above, we handle that storage for you automatically, and we can also handle that storage for you automatically for pre-T devices, provided that you set auto store locales to true in your Android manifest. So this delegates storage, your locale storage preferences to Android X in pre-T. The reason why we have this option is that some applications already have an in-app language picker, so they're already handling locale preference storage themselves. They might have a reason to set this to false or to omit this entry in the manifest, thereby setting it to false. So this option exists for them. Okay, so let's talk about this use case a little bit more. Let's say I already have an in-app language picker. I'm considering migrating to these APIs. What are the steps I should take? We recommend focusing on your in-application language picker first. So you'll want to migrate to the runtime API, and you'll recall that keyword is appcompat delegate. Then you'll want to migrate your storage. That keyword there is auto store locales. If you set auto store locales to true, this means that you're delegating storage to Android X. So you're going to hand off your locale storage immediately. You'll want to do this so that when your application updates, the users don't see this kind of inconsistent state where your app might not appear in the language they had previously selected because their preference was lost during the migration. So to prevent that, you'll want to hand off your preferences immediately, or if you set auto store locales to false, that means that you're going to continue to handle your locale preferences for pre-T, in which case you'll only hand off the storage when you encounter a version change to 33. And then, after migrating your in-app language picker, you will want to specify your supported locales, and the keyword there is locale config. Okay, so in this presentation, I sort of did the reverse order of presenting these topics. I presented locale config first, and then appcompat delegate. The reason for that is it's easier to get the settings app portion working first if you do not already have an in-app language picker, so you'd want to do that first. But if you do have an in-app language picker, you'll want to do it in this order. The reason for that is users might see an inconsistent state if it's done in the reverse order. So what I mean by this is, let's say that you haven't migrated your API calls to appcompat delegate for your in-app language picker. You'll remember that appcompat delegate syncs with the settings app. So if we're not using appcompat delegate, that means that sync is turned off. So users might try to go change your application language in the settings app, and then they'll be unsuccessful. Your application language won't actually change for that user. And so the user could become confused. So to be clear, this isn't a breaking change. Your in-app picker will always work. This would only happen if you kind of turned on the settings app portion, but you didn't migrate over your in-app language picker to use the API, so that sync was broken. All right, so by this point, hopefully you know what this feature is, why it's important. Now your question might be, should I implement this feature? And to know that, it might be helpful to know how this was done before. Okay, so before, this is an abridged version of the complexity that app developers unfortunately faced when creating their own in-application language pickers. We're not going to go through it line by line, but the TLDR is app developers would have to kind of navigate through all the API deprecations, and then they would have to store their own locale preferences. So the code became complex, and all this complexity has been distilled down into calling appcompat delegate, set application locales, and then in your manifest, delegating out your storage. So that's it for my talk. I hope you found it useful and informative. I am here to answer any questions you might have. You can ask questions on Twitter, or you can ask them now. And thank you very much.